Everyone thinks their morning is normal until the knock comes. 3 sharp hits, flat-palmed, heavy enough to rattle the glass in the front door. Not neighborly, not friendly, not the kind of knock you answer barefoot with coffee still in hand. This was the kind that makes your chest tighten, the kind that whispers, something's already wrong. I froze for half a second, mug halfway to my lips. My first thought wasn't, who is it? It was, do I still keep the shotgun by the door? I didn't. That realization burned as I stepped closer, slow, steady, the way a soldier clears a corner. When I opened it, I wasn't looking at delivery guys or meter readers or even cops. No. These men were dressed for a show, matte black tactical vests, reinforced boots, knockoff comms clipped to their shoulders. They wanted to look official without being official. The only thing missing were fake badges and mustaches. The tall one in front stepped forward like I had been expecting him. Buzzed hair, wraparound sunglasses even though the sun hadn't cleared the rooftops. He had the kind of smirk that belonged to a man who practiced handcuff poses in his mirror, clipboard in hand like it was a warrant. He said my name like he owned it. Mr. Stratton, Scheduled Compliance Review, HOA Custody Ordinance. For a moment I thought it was a prank, a bad skit. I blinked once, didn't answer, just measured them like targets on a range. Behind him, one stocky, arms crossed, breathing heavy, built like a bouncer who enjoyed breaking things. The third one was younger, lanky. His gear didn't fit right. His eyes kept darting sideways like his conscience was trying to climb out of his chest. The tall one didn't wait for my reply. He kept reading. We've received a behavioral concern about minor 714A under your care. His eyes didn't meet mine. They cut past me toward the hallway, toward Jason's room. That was when my jaw locked. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me, standing between them and the threshold. My voice was calm, even. You just said a lot of words. None of them made any legal sense. He flipped his page, rehearsed. Article 4.7c, the HOA retains the right to conduct minor safety compliance evaluations if a resident has been flagged as high risk. I laughed once sharp. Jason isn't a filing cabinet. He isn't subject to your spreadsheet fantasy. The stocky one shifted his weight, crossing arms tighter. Clipboard man didn't flinch. Non-cooperation will be logged. Across the street I saw her, Karen, standing in her flower bed, sipping from a stainless steel tumbler, dressed like a retired tennis coach who never found the court. Her eyes were locked on us. No blinking, no shame. She lifted her hand, waved, and mouthed, "It's for the best." I wanted to break something. The younger enforcer cleared his throat. We can escalate this through proper channels. Our recommendation was to start non-invasive. I stepped closer, slow, deliberate, letting them see my stance shift. Feet shoulder-width apart, shoulders loose, head tilted just enough to measure distance. 3 men in tactical vests knocking at a veteran's door at sunrise. You call that non-invasive? The tall one's lips pressed into a line. Are you refusing inspection? I'm refusing something, I said, still working on the word for it. The silence stretched. My coffee was cooling inside. Jason was upstairs, awake now, listening. Karen was still smiling, and these men were waiting for me to flinch. But they noticed something else, my posture, the way I didn't blink, the way my hands hung loose at my sides, ready. One wrong move, and I'd put the clipboard through his teeth. Finally, he stepped back. We'll report non-cooperation. Phase 2 will be initiated. Thank you for your time. They turned as one. Efficient, trained but not professional. They walked back to their black SUV, unmarked tinted windows, no license plate on the front. I watched until the doors shut. Phase 2. The words stuck in my head like barbed wire. Behind me, I heard the creak of a step. Jason, barefoot pajamas halfway down the stairs. His eyes were wide, breathing shallow. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. He'd heard enough. You okay? I asked. He nodded, didn't speak. I stepped outside again, stood where they had stood. My boot nudged something on the porch. A folded sheet of paper left on purpose, Jason's name printed across the top. A date, and in red, 2 words. Phase 2 approved. That's when I knew this wasn't a bluff. It wasn't theater. They were rehearsing. And next time they weren't coming for questions. They were coming for my son. Everyone thinks the real danger is the men at your door. The truth is it's what comes after. Quiet, paper, a knock you can't hear. The fourth citation wasn't slid into the mailbox. It wasn't tucked under the welcome mat. It was duct taped to our front door like a scarlet letter. Jason found it first. He just stood there staring at it, his hand frozen in the air. I walked up slow, peeled it from the wood, felt the sticky residue cling to my fingers like a warning. Violation, visual disruption. Front yard neglect. Fine $75. The crime, Jason's bike, left on the grass for 2 hours after school, 2 hours. Below the bold letters, in faint gray ink, I read the line that made my stomach turn. Persistent visual disruption may trigger compliance monitoring per Article 4.7c. I read it twice, then again, my fingers shook, not from fear, from rage I couldn't show. I folded it once, flat, like it was nothing, placed it on the counter. Made coffee like I wasn't unraveling inside. At breakfast, Jason sat in silence. He pushed his cereal around like it had betrayed him. Sarah stared at the wall. Nobody spoke until I forced words out. "You want me to take you in today?" Jason's shoulders hunched. He muttered, "I didn't do anything." Not "it's fine," not "don't worry about it," just, "I didn't do anything." And that was when I saw it. The fear wasn't about punishment. He wasn't scared of a fine. He was scared that maybe they were right. The door opened 5 minutes later and Nate walked in. Jason's godfather, my brother-in-arms in every way except blood, 2 Red Bulls in one hand, a flash drive in the other. He looked like he'd just broken into Fort Knox and won. "Okay," he said before I could ask. "Technically legal, morally gray, necessary." He slammed his laptop on the table, spun it around. A folder glowed on the screen, Project Dove, Willow Glen. Inside, timestamps, reports, photos, 32 families, every one of them flagged. A child, a parent, a veteran, a single mother, a line of red ink, surveillance notes, and at the very top us. Jason's profile, minor 714A stability monitoring required. Mine, John Stratt, unstable, volatility risk, prior combat, resistance to mediation, surveillance authorized. The air in the kitchen turned to ice. Photos burned into my eyes. Jason walking home from school. Me packing the driveway. Jason playing basketball in the backyard, red box drawn around him like he was a target in a sniper scope. Jason's fingers curled tight around the table's edge. His voice cracked. "They think I'm not safe here." Sarah leaned closer, jaw tight, eyes locked on me like she was searching for an answer I didn't have. Jason whispered the line that tore me open. "They think I'm not safe because of you." I had no defense, because this wasn't about what I'd done. It was about what I used to be. Nate broke the silence, his voice low. "This isn't a watch list, it's pre-clearance. They're building cases before removals." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "How long?" "Months," Nate said. "Maybe longer. Karen didn't start this, but she's feeding them actively." That name hit like a hammer. Karen, always in her garden, always smiling, always watching. I stood up fast, my fists clenched. Sarah's hand caught my wrist. "Don't," she whispered. "You're angry, she's counting on it." Jason looked up. "I want to go with you." I shook my head too fast. "No, you stay here." His shoulders dropped. He didn't argue. That silence hurt worse than words. I crossed the street. Karen was waiting, clippers in one hand, Bluetooth headset in her ear, lemonade in the other. She looked up when she saw me. No flinch, no guilt, just that smile. "John," she chirped, "did you see the newsletter, Pickleball's back?" My voice cut through hers. "You're flagging my son, you're surveilling my house." She tilted her head like I'd asked about the weather. "I don't flag anyone, that's the system, I just observe patterns." "You filed photos." "I submitted evidence," she corrected. "It's my duty when children may be unsafe." Her words were sweet, rehearsed, poisoned. "You mean kids with veteran parents?" Her smile didn't fade. She sipped her lemonade slow. "You'd be amazed how often that's the overlap." My pulse pounded. "You think you're protecting the neighborhood, but all you're doing is abusing a system no one's watching." Her eyes sharpened. "I am watching, that's the point." And there it was. She didn't think she was abusing power. She thought she was the power. Then she pulled something from her apron, An envelope, no return address. A sticker on the flap, safe start, family oversight division. "Came to my house by mistake," she said sweetly. "Figured you want it." I didn't take it, not yet. She leaned in whisper soft. "Take a break, John, you're spiraling. Jason doesn't need chaos in his environment." It was delivered like a casserole, warm, comforting. But it hit harder than any punch overseas, because she wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was the knife in my back. She turned, walked back to her roses. The envelope dangled between two fingers like bait. I stood there jaw tight, my whole body screaming to move. Not yet, not like this. Because Karen wasn't just playing games anymore. She was working for something bigger, something hidden, something coming. And the next move wouldn't be paper. It would be blood. You ever feel the air change before danger arrives? The night was too quiet. No wind, no dogs barking, just silence that felt manufactured. Jason had gone upstairs hours earlier, hoodie still on, eyes restless. Sarah had turned in, pretending to sleep. I sat in the dark living room, staring at Nate's stolen files, scrolling through evidence until the words blurred into static. That's when the scream came. Jason's scream. Short, sharp, enough to slice straight through the walls of the house and rip me out of the chair. I bolted down the hallway, barefoot, no weapon, just instinct and speed. And there he was, my son, being dragged by the collar by a man in full tactical black. Mask, headset, rifle slung low. Jason's arms flailing, legs kicking, but the guy was twice his size. Two more shadows flanked him, moving fast, controlled, efficient. 714A secured, one of them barked into his comm. Guardian status unclear, not tonight. Not tonight. I didn't wait. I launched myself down the hall like a missile, shoulder first into the first man's ribs. The hit drove him into the drywall. Jason tumbled free. My fists found his chest, then his throat. Two punches, an elbow strike, and he was gasping on the floor, mask slipping sideways. The second came from the kitchen, knife in hand. He swung wide. I grabbed the chair, slammed it into his legs. He buckled. We crashed over the table. Glass shattered. Blood smeared across the linoleum. He slashed again, caught my arm, shallow but hot. I smashed the coffee pot across his face. He dropped like dead weight. Then the third, bigger, calm. He didn't run, he advanced, precise, dangerous. One punch to my ribs sent pain ripping up my side, but pain was a language I spoke fluently. I countered with a headbutt. We both stumbled, dizzy, teeth rattling. And that's when I saw it, Jason's photo, clipped to his vest, laminated like a hunting license. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed his collar, yanked him forward, and drove him straight through the drywall. Plaster exploded. The whole house groaned like it was coming apart. I didn't stop. One punch, two, three. His face turned red, then blue, then nothing but blood. My fists didn't feel like fists anymore, they felt like hammers. "Dad," Jason's voice cut through the fog. I froze, staring down at my hands, at the man barely breathing under them. I stood, chest heaving, blood dripping from my knuckles. Jason was pressed against the wall, eyes wide, not with relief, with fear. He didn't look at me like I was his protector. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Sarah ran in, screaming his name. Pulled Jason into her arms. He clung to her, trembling. My son, my boy, shaking because of me. I knelt, zip-tied the last man's wrists just to keep control. The other two lay unconscious. One twitching. One not moving at all. I didn't check for a pulse. I didn't care. On the third guy's belt, I found a phone. Unlocked it with his bloodied fingerprint. Inside, an ops schedule. Extraction orders. My son listed as target 714A, me listed as guardian interference likely. Eliminate if necessary. Time of collection, 3:00 a.m. They weren't improvising. This wasn't a scare tactic, it was scheduled. I sat there, phone in my hand, blood drying on my fists, when Jason whispered the words that broke me. "You said we were safe." No judgment in his tone, no anger, just disappointment, hurt, like I'd failed a promise I should never have made. Sirens wailed in the distance, lights flashing against the windows. 2 squad cars and a plainclothes cruiser rolled up. Officers stormed the house, guns raised, eyes wide at the wreckage. "Sir, step back from the men," one barked. I raised my hands, calm, controlled. They broke in, they tried to abduct my son, again. The taller cop glanced from Jason, trembling in Sarah's arms, to the zip-tied man bleeding on the carpet. "You do this yourself." "Yes." He reached for his cuffs. "You're coming with us." I tossed him the phone. "Check it." He caught it, scrolled, stopped, his face drained pale. "Guardian removal scheduled, phase 3 active. What the hell does this mean?" "It means they didn't come to scare us. They came to erase me." Jason's voice cracked. "It's true, they tried to take me, he stopped them." That stopped everything. The officers froze, looked at each other, looked at Jason. Sarah stepped forward, fire in her voice. "And if he hadn't, you'd be dragging a body bag out of here." Silence, then one of the officers nodded. They backed off, ordered me to sit, said the men would be processed. I knew what that meant: paperwork, spin, delay, but not arrest. For now, that was enough. Later, when the cops left, I scrolled deeper into the phone. Hidden folders, not just us, dozens of families, all flagged, all marked for removal, all with schedules. And next to my file, status, incomplete. Cause, guardian resistance. Then I found the audio file, played it once, recognized the voice instantly. "Karen." "Proceed, keep it clean. He won't fight, he's exhausted. They all crack eventually." My hand shook as I replayed it, not once, not twice, 10 times, burned into me. This wasn't random, this wasn't rogue. This was Karen, my neighbor, smiling at her roses while she ordered men to drag my son into a van. I sat in the dark house, every nerve in my body vibrating with fury. Jason didn't speak. Sarah didn't ask, they didn't need to. Because they knew. The next move wouldn't be Karen hiding behind her clipboard. The next move would be me. Some wounds don't bleed anymore. They just wait, lurking under the skin, waiting for the wrong night to come back alive. I didn't sleep after the fight. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jason's face not as my son, but as a witness. The way his eyes locked on my fists covered in blood, not relief, not gratitude, fear of me. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the phone I'd taken off the enforcer. Files open, words like Phase 3, re-education protocol, guardian, Stratton, status, pending collection. It wasn't about Jason anymore, it was about me. And then the memory came back, not in a dream, not in a whisper, in full color. Fallujah. We were told the warehouse was cold. Intel said abandoned. When we breached, it was wrong. 5 combatants inside. Gunfire erupted. Our comms guy went down in seconds. My team moved like lightning, 2 targets down. One retreated north. That's when I heard it, not a gunshot, not a shout. A scream, high-pitched, a child. I turned, found her in the corner, 9 years old, maybe less, hands over her ears, tears streaking her face. No weapon, no vest, just a kid. She looked at me like I was the monster under her bed. And then she ran, out the side exit, straight into the line of fire. I could have stopped her, I could have pulled her back, shielded her, saved her. But for 1 second I froze, because when I looked into her eyes, I saw Jason. And by the time I moved, it was too late. The report called it regrettable. The after-action review called it unavoidable. But I called it what it was, my failure. I carried that weight home. And now, years later, it had followed me into my kitchen, because the system didn't just see me as a father. They saw me as a liability, a broken soldier pretending at normal life. Jason came down the stairs quietly past midnight, hoodie up. He thought I was asleep. He poured a glass of water, pale under the kitchen light. He didn't see my hands trembling on the table. He didn't know I was watching. Sarah stepped beside me. Her voice was calm, too calm. "You scared him." I didn't answer. "He's alive, but that's not the same thing." Her words cut deeper than any blade, because she wasn't talking about Jason's safety. She was talking about his soul. He was learning how to vanish inside himself, just like I did. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe. I opened Nate's files again, dug deeper. They didn't just have citations, they had everything, therapist records, VA sessions I barely remembered attending. Notes from nights I hadn't slept in 3 days. Words I'd said out loud when I was at my lowest. One line stood out. Some nights I feel more dangerous to myself than to anyone else. They'd logged it, flagged it, used it as evidence, proof of instability, justification for removal. They weren't just watching me. They were weaponizing my worst moments. Sarah found me an hour later, still staring at the screen. "You okay?" she asked softly. I shook my head, no. She didn't try to fix it. She didn't touch me. She just sat beside me in silence, and that meant more than words ever could. Then I heard Jason's voice from the hallway. "You didn't sleep either." He stood there in the dark, hands tucked in the sleeves of his hoodie, his eyes full of something I couldn't name, love, fear, shame, all tangled together. I nodded no. "You don't have to go to war for me," he whispered. I paused. "It's not just for you." He didn't argue. He just nodded, turned, and went back upstairs. And that was when I stood, because the decision was made. They called me dangerous, unstable, unfit. But they forgot something. I've spent my whole life keeping the monster inside me chained. Now I was going to let it loose. Jason's scream cut through the night like glass shattering in my chest. Not a dream, not a memory, real. I was off the couch in 2 seconds, feet pounding the hallway. No shoes, no weapon, just instinct. And there he was, my son, being dragged by the collar again, kicking, twisting, fighting, but losing. A man in full tactical black had him pinned, headset barking orders into the night. 714A secured, guardian status unclear, proceeding to extraction. 2 more figures flanked him, one coming from the kitchen, knife glinting in the dark, the other blocking the back door. They weren't knocking this time. They weren't bluffing. This was the collection. I didn't think. I launched, full sprint. My shoulder slammed into the first man's ribs with the force of a car crash. Jason rolled free, scrambling backward on hands and knees. I landed 2 punches center mass, then an elbow to the throat. He gagged once and collapsed. The second lunged from the kitchen, knife slashing. I kicked the chair into his legs. He stumbled. We crashed over the table. Wood cracked. Glass exploded across the floor. He slashed again, blade grazing my arm, hot and sharp. I grabbed the coffee pot and smashed it across his face. His body crumpled against the counter, blood spreading fast. Then came the third, bigger, heavier, calm. He didn't run, he advanced, measured, dangerous, the kind of man who finishes fights. His fist hit my ribs like a hammer. Pain seared up my side, stole my breath. I staggered. He kept coming, methodical, precise. I countered with a headbutt. We both stumbled, my vision blurred. Then I saw it. Jason's photo, clipped to the man's vest, laminated like a hunting tag. Something inside me detonated. I grabbed him by the collar, yanked him forward, and drove him through the drywall. Plaster rained down like snow. The house moaned under the impact. 1 punch, 2, 3, my fists weren't fists anymore, they were weapons. He coughed blood, lips curling back, but I didn't stop. I kept swinging, blind, furious. Every strike fueled by one thought: they came for my son. "Dad." Jason's voice cut through me like a blade. I froze, my fists hovered above the man's skull, blood dripping from my knuckles onto his chest. I looked up. Jason was staring at me, eyes wide, not with relief, not with safety, with fear. He didn't see a protector, he saw a stranger. Sarah ran in, screaming his name. She yanked Jason into her arms, shielding him from me. Her voice was raw, desperate. "Stop, John." I stumbled back, chest heaving, hands shaking. The man under me groaned, barely conscious, his chest rig still flashing Jason's name. I ripped the phone from his belt, forced his thumb against the sensor. It unlocked with a buzz, inside orders, detailed, cold. Exfil schedule, 0300 hours. Target, minor 714A Guardian interference expected. Neutralize if necessary. They weren't guessing, they weren't improvising, they had planned this down to the minute. And I had walked right into their timetable. Jason's voice broke the silence, soft, cracked. "You said we were safe." No judgment, no anger, just pain, disappointment, the kind that digs deeper than any knife. Sirens wailed outside, tires screeched, lights filled the windows. Cops. Not local this time. City squad cars, one cruiser, one unmarked sedan, officers poured in, weapons drawn. Their eyes swept across the carnage, broken furniture, shattered glass, 3 bodies bleeding on my floor, my fist still stained red. Step back, one officer shouted. I raised my hands, calm, controlled. They broke in, tried to abduct my son. The taller officer's eyes flicked to Jason, trembling in Sarah's arms, then to the man zip-tied at my feet. You did this yourself. I didn't blink, yes. He reached for cuffs. You'll need to come with us. I tossed him the phone. Check it. He caught it, scrolled, stopped. His expression shifted, pale. Guardian removal, phase 3, scheduled collection. What the hell does this mean? It means they weren't here to scare me. They were here to erase me. Jason's voice cracked. It's true, they tried to take me, he stopped them. That stopped everything. The officers hesitated, looked at each other. Sarah stepped forward, her voice like fire. And if he hadn't, you'd be dragging my son's body out of here tonight. Silence stretched, heavy. Then the taller officer nodded slowly, lowered his cuffs. Sit down, we'll process the men. I knew what that meant. Spin, delay, paperwork. But not arrest, not tonight. Later, when the cops left, I scrolled deeper through the phone. More files, more names, dozens of families flagged, children logged, guardians labeled unstable. And then an audio file, one click, one voice. Karen. Proceed, keep it clean. He won't fight, he's exhausted, they all crack eventually. Her words echoed in the silence of my living room. My hand shook as I replayed them, over and over. Karen, my neighbor, the woman pruning roses and waving like we were friends. She had ordered this. I looked at Jason. He was watching me from the couch, wrapped in a blanket, his eyes heavy but awake, still afraid. And I knew. The next move wasn't theirs. It was mine. You can fight men in your hallway. You can put them on the ground, break their bones, and walk away breathing. But what do you do with the woman who sent them, who still smiles at you the next morning like she's handing out cookies at a bake sale? That was Karen. She didn't kick my door in. She paid someone else to. And then she went to bed early so she could look fresh for the HOA board meeting. The next morning I didn't shave, didn't change my shirt, didn't care. I walked into that fluorescent-lit community center with one thing in my hand, the phone, the files, the proof. HOA meetings usually smell like weak coffee and mild resentment, mostly retirees arguing about hedge height. But that morning it was packed. Neighbors who hadn't shown up in years, journalists with cameras, parents whispering, faces pale with rumors. And at the front of the room, 7 board members sat behind a long, folding table like suburban royalty. Karen at the center, beige pantsuit, pearls, clipboard resting in front of her like a gavel. Her smile said, "This is under control." Spoiler, it was. "Mr. Stratton," she said sweetly, "we weren't expecting you." I didn't answer. I just walked to the podium, set the phone on the mic stand, and pressed play. Her voice filled the room, cold, measured, recorded. Proceed, keep it clean. He won't fight, he's exhausted, they all crack eventually. Silence followed, not awkward silence, surgical, precise, you could feel the cut. No coughs, no whispers, just every eye in that room turning toward her. That, I said, is from the body cam of a man who broke into my house at 3 a.m. who zip-tied my son, who was authorized by this board's chairwoman to remove me permanently. Karen blinked once, then smiled. That recording is clearly taken out of context. I leaned forward. Which part? Proceed, keep it clean, they all crack eventually. Tell me which part is the context. Dennis Withers, the vice chair, tried to step in. Mr. Stratton, we're not here to litigate. Then resign, I snapped, cutting him off. Because what I'm about to read isn't rumor, it's data, your votes, your signatures, your funding trails to a black badge contractor called Safe Start, a shell company with no oversight and a very real body count. I dropped a flash drive on the table like a grenade. Karen's jaw tightened, but she held her smile. This, I continued, is Project Dove, your little family wellness pilot. 33 homes flagged. Dozens of children tagged for surveillance, all scored for emotional instability, all targeted for removal. And at the top of that list, my son. Karen's voice was syrup, dripping false concern. Mr. Stratton, you're not well, you never have been. There's a reason you've been flagged for intervention. Maybe it's time this community took a closer look at your capacity. That was her swing, weaponizing the language of wellness, painting me as dangerous, unstable, so when I fell, the crowd would cheer. But the problem was, I brought receipts. I pressed another clip. Accelerate Phase 3, frame it as neighborhood safety. No one questions anything if you say the word child. This time it wasn't silence, it was gasps, a chair scraping back, a voice from the audience, an older man in a faded military jacket. My daughter got one of those letters, he said, his voice cracked. Said my granddaughter was at risk, she's 6 years old, Karen, you sent that. Karen started to answer, but another voice cut her off. Mrs. Delaney, pink cardigan, fire in her eyes. I second his motion. Then another neighbor stood, third. It spread like fire, hands rising, voices rising, phones recording. Karen stood, not screaming, not slamming, just stood. Her smile gone now. Her eyes fixed on me like I had undone a decade-long plan with one flash drive. And maybe I had. The board's vice chair tried to restore order, but it was too late. The vote came down hard and fast. Karen suspended, Dennis resigned. An emergency audit ordered, SAFE starts funding frozen, police notified. Karen looked at me one last time, her words soft but sharp enough to slice. You're not saving your son, John, you're turning him into you. I didn't answer, because the truth, that possibility scared me more than anything. But the board had spoken, the neighborhood had turned. For once the machine had cracked. When I walked out into the sunlight, the whole neighborhood was watching. Sarah leaned against the car. Jason sat in the back seat, hoodie up, window cracked, his eyes studying me, not as a son looks at a father, as a witness looks at the accused. I opened the door, sat beside him. He didn't speak at first, just studied me. Did she fall? He asked finally. I exhaled, she got pushed. He didn't smile, didn't flinch. He just nodded like that was the answer he already expected. That night my phone rang. A blocked number, I answered. Silence at first, then a low, measured voice I didn't recognize. Phase 4 wasn't hers to approve. Silence again. Then we don't clean up messes, we bury them. Click, line dead. I stared at the wall at the photo of Jason when he was 6, missing teeth, birthday hat, chocolate frosting smeared on his cheeks. Back when I believed love alone could keep him safe. Now I knew better. Karen was never the boss, she was just the bait. And whoever was really pulling the strings, they were just getting started. Some threats break down your door. Others break down your life piece by piece until you don't recognize yourself in the mirror. Karen had fallen, but she wasn't the boss. She was just a pawn, and pawns are disposable. The voice on the phone made that clear. Phase 4 wasn't hers to approve. So if she was the bait, then who was the fisherman? I found out 2 mornings later, inside Nate's warehouse. The place smelled like burnt coffee, solder, and paranoia. 3 monitors glowed against concrete walls, wires snaking across the floor. Backup generators hummed in the corner. The whole building wrapped in a Faraday cage Nate had built from scrap metal and obsession. Your license plate got pinged again, Nate said without looking up. Hoodie pulled tight, eyes red from too many nights without sleep. 3 times this week, not traffic cams, private geo-flags. They're not tracking your phone anymore, John. They're tracking you, thermal imaging, heat signatures. He spun the monitor toward me. Pixelated infrared stills, me and Jason walking across our driveway, red outlines poolsing around our bodies. Labeled, tagged, Observer 714A Guardian Risk. I clenched my jaw. They're not watching us, they're hunting us. Not just you, Nate said. I traced Safe Start's metadata. Dead end in Connecticut, a law firm with no lawyers, but follow the trail further, you hit a Luxembourg shell company. From there, a private holding group in Dubai. I frowned. That's international money laundering. Nate nodded. And the parent? A risk analytics contractor called UNITAS. They've done predictive modeling overseas for federal agencies. Now they've brought it home. He opened another folder. Encrypted logs, psychological profiles, every flagged family in Willow Glen scored for instability risk. My file front and center. Observer Stratton John, volatility exceeded. Intervention non-viable. Phase 4, neutralization. I read it twice. The words didn't change. They don't want me in court, I whispered. They want a body. Nate didn't look up. They're running a stress test, pushing veterans like you until you snap, then documenting the fallout. They want to prove trauma can be programmed, weaponized, even inherited. I didn't respond, because Jason had been sitting in the corner, hoodie half-zipped, listening. His voice broke the silence. So I'm not just a target. His eyes locked on mine. I'm their blueprint. My stomach dropped. They've been watching every move I make, Jason continued, his voice low, shaking. Every reaction, every word, testing how far until I break. And when I do, they'll use it as proof that you were the reason. I tried to speak, but nothing came. He wasn't angry, he wasn't even scared. He was tired, bone-deep tired. You said you were protecting me, he whispered, but you walked me straight into their system. That one landed harder than any fist I'd ever taken. I sat down, feeling the weight of every decision I'd made pressing into my ribs. Sarah put a hand on Jason's shoulder. He didn't pull away, but he didn't lean in either. What do we do now? She asked. Nate's answer was fast. We go public. I shook my head. Not yet. If we leak too early, they'll bury it all. Jason looked at me, his voice sharper now. Then what? You fight them, kill them, and then what happens to me when you're gone? I didn't have an answer, not one that would satisfy him, not one that would save him. But Nate did. He pulled up a grainy still frame from a security camera, a man in a suit walking into a UNITAS satellite office in Phoenix. Badge clipped to his chest, his face unmistakable. Dennis Ha, vice chair of the HOA, the same man who had resigned for integrity. He was never flagged, Nate said. Never monitored, never scored, you know why? Because he was part of it from the start, I muttered. Jason leaned forward. So what now? I stood, reached into a lockbox, and pulled out an old recorder I used for combat debriefings. Checked the battery. Full. We make him talk. We found Dennis 3 levels underground in a downtown parking garage. He wasn't hiding. He was waiting. When he saw me, he didn't flinch. You're not supposed to be here, he said. Neither are you. We brought him back to Nate's warehouse. Sat him under a single bulb, his wristwatch turned inward like he still thought he was in control of time. I hit record, the red light blinked. You don't have to do this, Dennis said calmly. Do what? I asked. Pretend this is a war. I leaned forward, my voice low. I'm not pretending anything, and if this were a war, you'd already be dead. He studied the recorder. You want answers, you won't believe them. Try me. Silence stretched until the bulb hummed loud enough to count. Finally, he spoke. You don't understand what Phase 4 is. Then explain it. He exhaled. It's not about Jason anymore, it's about you. I slid the flash drive across the table. We know about Safe Start, about UNITAS, about Project Dove. You offered our neighborhood as a test bed. Tell me about Phase 5. His hands shook, just a flicker, but I saw it. They're not just tracking behavior anymore, he said flatly. They're modifying it, pressures, proximity. They isolate a kid like Jason, flag him, then engineer the reaction of his family. They want to prove trauma can be programmed and reversed inside a controlled HOA cell. They create the pressure, then sell the cure. My stomach turned, and Jason. Dennis looked down. He's not a subject, he's a model, the blueprint, every reaction logged, every fear mapped. He's their proof of concept. That stopped me cold. Because it wasn't about removing Jason. It was about replicating him over and over across the country. I stood, walked to the far wall, fists tight. Why? Dennis's voice cracked. Because I thought order meant peace, but peace built on fear doesn't last. I turned back, staring into his eyes. You help them take children, silence veterans, rewrite families, give me something worth leaking. He hesitated, then nodded, and he talked. Names, contractors, black badge cleanup teams across 14 neighborhoods, maps of distribution zones, risk color coding, Jason's role as the template for a new generation of engineered obedience. When the recorder stopped, it had logged 1 hour and 7 minutes. I clicked it off, the room went silent. Dennis sat there looking smaller, older, already half dead. If you go back to them, I said, you die. If you stay with us, you might die slower, your choice. He closed his eyes, then keep me useful. I pocketed the recorder, my chest heavy. Jason was waiting outside. When he saw me, he didn't ask what Dennis had said. He just asked one question. So I'm really their blueprint. I didn't lie, I nodded. His eyes hardened. Then I'll be the one to break it. I didn't sleep the night before the breach. I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, every breath counting time I didn't have. Sarah paced the hallway in socks. Nate slept sitting upright with one hand on his keyboard. Jason sat downstairs, hoodie on, staring at the wall monitor replaying clips of himself he never asked to see. You good? I asked finally. He didn't look at me, his eyes stayed on the screen. You said I was a template. You were, I admitted. So what happens after tonight? I hesitated. After tonight, they don't get to use you anymore. He nodded once, then let them see me. We left at 2:42 a.m. a beat-up van, tools loaded, no backup, just 4 people against an empire. Nate tracked the path on 3 monitors, Sarah ran comms, Jason handled the leak trigger from a safe house. His idea, he wasn't going to hide anymore. The target was the core, a subterranean server hub disguised as a disaster response facility outside Phoenix, UNITAS's brain. We crawled through the water shaft, 12 feet down, reeking of bleach and rust. It opened beneath a blind spot Nate had looped on the cameras. We hit the ground at 3:08, 3 guards patrolling, quick, silent takedowns, efficient, precise. The compound inside was sterile. White walls, black glass, machines humming like a hive. At 3:11 we reached the server chamber, a cathedral of surveillance, towers of blinking red lights, families' lives humming inside machines. Dennis's stolen credentials worked. Biometric, retina, voice, we were in. Nate plugged in the drive. We get 80% before we go live, anything less they bury it. How long? I asked. 4 minutes. I scanned the rows, found a side door, unmarked. I pushed inside. And froze. Not just data, simulations, thousands of renderings, families, children, Jason, crying, running, breaking. Every emotional response logged, mirrored, manipulated. At the center of the room, a holographic projection. Jason, age 14, heart rate synced. His life turned into an algorithm. Adaptive Model 7. Success rate 93%. They weren't watching him, they were training him. I copied the entire directory, then smashed the terminal with my elbow until sparks spat out. Back in the chamber, Nate called. We're at 82%, go live. He hit execute. The signal jumped across 400 nodes, darknet drops, whistle servers in 3 countries, university vaults. Then the alarm screamed. Red lights, system spike, guards pouring in, 3 from the west hall. I dropped one with a chokehold. Sarah disarmed the second. Nate tripped the breaker, hallway blacked out. The third went for the alarm. I caught him by the vest, slammed his skull into the wall. Silence. 2 minutes to redundancy wipe, Nate shouted. If we don't hit the buffers, they erase everything. I tossed Sarah the drive. Get this to Jason. What about you? I've got the fuse. I sprinted down the hall, planting charges on the server cores. 45-second timers. My chest pounded. My ribs ached. Every nerve screamed. A heavy guard ambushed me in the corridor. Bigger, faster. He slammed me into the concrete, forearm across my throat, my vision blurred. Then Sarah appeared. A fire extinguisher swung like a hammer, back of his skull cracked. He collapsed. "You followed me," I rasped. "If they had my kid in those servers, I wouldn't leave either," she snapped. We ran, explosions chased us through the shaft. Heat, dust, the earth itself shaking as the core collapsed behind us. Back in the van, Jason had the laptop open, drive plugged in, his hands steady now. "Is this it?" he asked. I nodded, all of it. He hit enter. The leak went live. Nate confirmed, "It's mirrored, they can't kill it now." For a long moment no one spoke. The weight lifted but not gone, just lighter. An hour later the first news site picked it up. By noon the whole world had it. Phase 5 schematics, shadow contracts, Jason's adaptive model, HOA emails, Karen's audio clips, Dennis's confession. The system didn't crumble in one day, but the mask cracked. Parents, teachers, veterans, even anchors on live TV broke down reading the files. One couldn't finish Jason's flag score on air. Another ripped out his earpiece and walked off set. Karen tried to vanish. Too late. She was already a meme. Her quote, "You're not stable, John," spray-painted on mailboxes, turned into hashtags. Jason watched the chaos. He didn't smile, didn't flinch. He just said quietly, "Now they know." It's been 6 days since the leak. The neighborhood looks the same. Sprinklers still fire at 6. Kids still ride bikes. Mail still late. But it feels different, because now they know. Jason doesn't flinch when the doorbell rings anymore. He checks it calmly, sometimes even answers it. Sarah sleeps longer, still keeps the bat by the bed, but she hasn't touched it in 3 days. We don't talk about the core, not directly, but it lingers in every silence, in every look. When Jason asks for space, I give it. When I ask where he's going, he tells me. No fights, no fear, just permission, mutual. That's something you can't manufacture with rules. That's called trust. Nate went ghost, moved to Seattle under a new name, sends updates when he can. His last message, restructured, safe start changed names, same blueprints, watch the schools next. Dennis vanished. No charges, no footage, like someone higher up erased him. Karen gave one interview before the feed cut off at 7 minutes. They called it technical difficulties. I call it mercy. But the truth, this was never Karen's story, it was Jason. His footage is still online, millions of views. He doesn't watch most of it, just one clip. The HOA meeting, Karen's face when the vote was called. Not for revenge, for proof that truth can still win. Last night we sat in the garage, same spot where my medals gathered dust. Jason looked at me and asked, "Do you think I'll ever be normal?" I thought about it, then asked back, "Do you want to be?" He paused, then shook his head. "I want to be ready." That was the moment I knew. I hadn't lost myself saving him. I just burned the parts that couldn't carry peace anymore. Because protection isn't about hiding your child from the storm. It's about teaching them how to walk through it and never lose their name. So here we are, no medals, no headlines, just one house, one family still here. And if you're hearing this, if you've seen what they built, then you already know they failed. Because they trained me for war. But they forgot what happens when soldiers come home angry. And this time, they picked the wrong neighborhood. You've heard this confession, now wait until you hear the next one.